At first glance, it looked like any other coin you'd get in your change from the grocery store. A simple Lincoln cent, ordinary, forgettable, but hiding in plain sight was a treasure that would shake the coin world to its core. 2009 was supposed to be just another year for the penny. And yet, it became one of the most celebrated years in U.S. coin history. Collectors know it well, the year the mint honored Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday. For brand new reverse designs were struck, each telling a story of Lincoln's life. His humble Kentucky birth, his Indiana boyhood, his Illinois years, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. Millions of these coins flooded into circulation. But here's the shocking twist. In that flood, a few rare survivors emerged. Pennies with mistakes, anomalies, and mysteries so rare they're now worth life-changing sums of money. A no-mint mark bicentennial Lincoln penny, tied to the year-long celebration of America's most beloved president, valued today at up to $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When collectors first pulled the 2009 bicentennial pennies from circulation, they were excited but cautious. Most were just face value. A few had minor errors. But hidden among them were coins without a mint mark, coins that shouldn't even exist. Because in 2009, every cent struck for circulation at Philadelphia carried no mint mark by design. It was ordinary, but certain special strikes, experimental test runs, and rare double dies made some of these no-mint mark coins absolutely extraordinary. Dealers began whispering about them. Auction houses started to take notice. And then came the sale, an unassuming 2009 no-mint mark penny. One that most people would have spent without a second thought, crossed the block for nearly $1 million. The room fell silent, then erupted with disbelief. Collectors were shocked. How could such a new penny, a coin younger than a high school student, command a price reserved for ancient rarities? The answer was hidden in the smallest of details. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it. On these 2009 no-mint mark bicentennial pennies, error varieties slipped through. Double dies on Lincoln's log cabin. Misaligned strikes on the Indiana formative years design. Weak strikes on the Illinois professional life. And the most coveted of all coins where the details were razor sharp, the luster was untouched, and no mint mark left a shadow of mystery. To the untrained eye, they were nothing. But to those who knew what to look for, they were a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. You're emptying your pockets after a long day, loose coins clinking onto the counter. Penny catches your eye. It looks shinier, crisper, different somehow. You set it aside, not thinking much of it. Days later, curiosity strikes and you begin to research. The date, 2009. No mint mark. The design, Lincoln's story. And then the shocking revelation. You're holding one of the rarest modern pennies ever made. A coin worth more than your car, more than your house, worth nearly $1 million. But the story doesn't stop there. Because the 2009 bicentennial penny wasn't just about honoring Lincoln. It was about reviving interest in the cent itself. Millions were hoarded. Collectors rushed to build full sets. Yet, in the rush, errors escaped unnoticed. And while some went for hundreds or even thousands, a select few with pristine preservation, shocking mistakes, or perfect proof-like strikes became legends. Dealers began scouring rolls, opening sealed mint boxes, searching with magnifying glasses late into the night. The frenzy was electric. Every collector dreamed of being the next person to pull $1 million coin from circulation. And some did. Many people who held one of these pennies never knew what they had. They spent them, tossed them, dropped them into tip jars and vending machines. Wealth slipped through their fingers without a sound. This exact penny could have passed through your hands already. Think about it. The coins were released everywhere: grocery stores in Ohio, gas stations in Texas, coffee shops in California. They jingled in the pockets of everyday Americans, hidden treasures carried unknowingly from hand to hand. Some ended up in banks, bundled away. Others still sit in dresser drawers, forgotten. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million comes down to a handful of crucial details. The shine of the luster, the crispness of Lincoln's features, the alignment of the strike, and most importantly, whether the coin carries that rare no-mint mark anomaly tied to the bicentennial designs. Collectors have seen these coins go from pocket change to life-changing fortune in a heartbeat. Stories spread like wildfire. A teenager discovering one in a roll from the bank. An elderly man realizing the coin he'd saved for years was actually a treasure. A young mother paying for groceries with a coin that, had she known, could have secured her child's entire future. But here's what most people don't realize. The 2009 bicentennial Lincoln penny exists in 4 designs, and each design carries its own secrets. Some have strong double dies on Lincoln's hands, books, or cabin logs. Others show rare striking errors, off-centering, or missing details. And when combined with the Philadelphia no-mint mark and graded at the highest levels of perfection, the values skyrocket into the millions. And yet, most collectors walk right past them, because spotting the difference requires patience, knowledge, and the courage to believe that the smallest coin can hold the biggest fortune. So here's how to know if you found one. 2009. If it carries no mint mark beneath the date, it was struck in Philadelphia. That's your starting point. Next, examine the reverse design carefully with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling, extra lines on Lincoln's hands, the books, or the log cabin. Check for misaligned features, cracks in the die, or missing details. Then study the luster. If the coin looks nearly flawless, untouched by circulation, it could be a rare high-grade survivor. And finally, consider getting it graded. A coin certified at the highest mint state levels, MS68, MS69, can push values into 6 or 7 figures. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Dealers whisper about them at shows. Auction houses await the next discovery. And every day, pennies change hands that could be worth far more than anyone realizes. Yes, we're talking about the 1994 Lincoln Memorial penny with no mint mark, a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans spent it without a second thought. Yet hidden among those billions is one mistake, one tiny detail, that transformed an everyday cent into a collector's dream worth over $1 million. Imagine holding something so small, so common, that you'd toss it into a coin jar without hesitation. Now imagine learning that the very same coin could have paid off your home, bought your dream car, or secured your retirement. That's the breathtaking reality of this penny. The story begins in 1994, a year when the U.S. Mint produced over 6 billion pennies. With so many struck, errors were inevitable. But one particular batch carried a hidden difference so subtle that only the sharpest eyes would ever notice. To most people, it looked like every other penny. But to a few collectors, it was a fortune disguised as pocket change. And here's where it gets unbelievable. Collectors soon began to notice oddities in certain 1994 pennies. The most shocking of all? No mint mark. A missing letter that, on the surface, seemed like nothing at all. But in the world of coin collecting, it was everything. Without that tiny mark, this penny was no longer ordinary. It was rare. It was unique. It was history pressed into copper and zinc. Or was it something more? An intentional slip that managed to sneak past quality control? Even today, the debate fuels endless fascination among collectors. And then came the discovery that shook the hobby. One unsuspecting man in the Midwest noticed something strange in his pocket change. The penny felt ordinary in his hand, but when he looked closer, something didn't add up. There was Lincoln's familiar face, the memorial on the back, the date 1994, but no mint mark at all. He didn't know it then, but he had just uncovered a life-changing treasure. When he finally brought it to a dealer, jaws dropped. Experts confirmed the coin's authenticity. It wasn't altered. It wasn't fake. It was real. A 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial penny, one of the rarest modern cents in existence. And when it hit the auction block, bidding went wild. Collectors battled fiercely, each desperate to own a piece of numismatic history. Prices climbed higher and higher until finally the hammer dropped. That tiny 1-cent piece, once worth almost nothing, had soared to a value approaching $1 million. But here's the part that stuns collectors even more. That penny wasn't the only one. Rumors began to spread. Could there be others? Had more slipped through unnoticed? Suddenly, the hunt was on. Dealers, collectors, and even casual coin hunters tore through their change jars, scanning every 1994 penny with shaking hands. Because if there was one, there could be two. And if there were two, who's to say how many were still hiding in the wild? The frenzy has never stopped. And this is why, even decades later, every 1994 penny still holds a hint of mystery. You might glance at one and think it's just pocket change. But what if it isn't? What if it's the coin? What if it's the one that turns your penny jar into $1 million miracle? But before you rush to check your change, there's something you need to know. Most 1994 pennies are worth only a cent. Even well-preserved ones usually bring in just a few dollars. That's why the key is attention to detail. One tiny oversight, and you could spend away a fortune without realizing it. 1994. Now, look just below it to the right of Lincoln's portrait. Normally, you'd see a mint mark, a D for Denver, or a P for Philadelphia. But if that space is completely blank, no letter at all, you may be holding something special. But here's the catch. Some scammers have tried to erase mint marks from ordinary pennies to trick collectors. So authenticity matters. Genuine no-mint mark errors have unique characteristics that experts can verify. Subtle die features, natural wear patterns, and specific diagnostics separate the million-dollar miracle from a worthless fake. It matters more than most people realize. A scratched, worn, or damaged penny, even if rare, won't reach the same heights as one that's been preserved with care. That's why collectors treasure mint state examples, coins that look almost exactly as they did the day they left the mint. But this is where the suspense builds again. What if one of these flawless, authentic no-mint mark 1994 pennies is still out there, undiscovered? What if it's sitting at the bottom of a piggy bank, or hiding in a forgotten drawer, or jingling in the pocket of someone who has no idea of its worth? The coin world has been stunned before, and it could be stunned again. Every year, new discoveries surface. Rare errors, unusual strikes, coins thought to be lost forever. And each time, one collector's ordinary day transforms into an extraordinary story. So picture this. You're counting change at the end of the night. The pennies clink against the table. Your eyes sweep over them casually and then freeze, because something looks different. Your heart races. Your hands tremble. Could this be it? Could this be the coin? That's the magic of the 1994 no-mint mark penny. It's more than metal, more than money. It's a symbol of possibility, of hidden value waiting to be found where no one expects it. It reminds us that even the smallest, most overlooked things can carry unimaginable worth. Every pocketful of change holds the potential for a discovery that could rewrite your life. And among them all, the 1994 no-mint mark penny stands as a beacon of that possibility. So don't dismiss the next penny you find. Don't assume it's worthless, because history has proven, sometimes the most valuable treasures hide in plain sight. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of pennies. But when collectors discovered what was hidden on its surface, jaws dropped. A single 1968 D. Lincoln Memorial cent has been reported to fetch up to $1.2 million. And the story behind it is so mysterious, so shocking, that it continues to leave experts in disbelief even today. An ordinary penny, struck in the Denver Mint during a time of massive change in America. Tens of millions rolled off the presses, destined for gas stations, lunch counters, and payphones. But tucked within that ocean of copper were a handful of coins struck with errors so bizarre, so unbelievably rare, that they transformed what should have been pocket change into life-changing treasure. One collector, years later, almost gave his away. He thought it was just another old cent, until a sharp-eyed dealer spotted something off. The date looked strange. The letters weren't aligned quite right. And then, the mint mark told a story no one could ignore. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auctioneers whispered about it behind closed doors. Dealers scrambled to confirm it. And when the hammer finally dropped at a prestigious coin auction, this 1-cent piece, a coin smaller than your thumb, shocked everyone by crossing into 6 and then 7 figures. Over $1 million for a penny that could have been spent on a pack of gum. Some carry doubling so dramatic that Lincoln's profile almost looks shadowed, ghostly, as if another image hides beneath the surface. Collectors call it the double die. A minting error so rare, it turns metal into miracles. And others were struck off-center, clipped, or with mistakes so strange that each one became a museum-worthy artifact. But here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. Most people don't know that the 1968 Denver Mint was under enormous pressure. The U.S. Mint was racing to meet demand during a booming economy. In that rush, mistakes happened, small, almost invisible flaws that only years later would be recognized as multimillion-dollar treasures. What was once dismissed as defective is now hailed as priceless. And think about it, how many of these coins slipped through unnoticed? How many are still hiding in coffee cans, tucked away in old purses, or resting quietly in someone's forgotten change jar? The idea alone has collectors searching every single penny with shaking hands and hopeful hearts. One man in Colorado found his while rolling change to take to the bank. He noticed the D-Mint mark looked slightly misplaced, tilted in a way that shouldn't be possible. First, he thought it was nothing, but he showed it to a local dealer. That dealer's face went pale. He knew instantly this was no ordinary cent. That discovery turned into one of the most dramatic coin stories of the decade. But here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look at the date. On the rare double die, the 1968 shows signs of extra impressions, almost like it was struck twice. The Liberty on the left side of the coin may look thickened, distorted, or shadowed, and the mint mark, the small d under the date, might not line up perfectly, because unlike today, mint marks back then were hand-punched, leaving room for strange, valuable misplacements. Collectors were shocked when they realized how easily overlooked this could be. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these few survivors, and stories of ordinary people discovering them in spare change have spread like wildfire through the numismatic world. But just when you think the story is over, it isn't. Some coins from 1968D weren't just doubled or mispunched. Some were struck on the wrong planchets entirely. Imagine finding a penny from 1968D, but it isn't copper-colored at all. Instead, it shines in silver tones because it was accidentally struck on a dime blank. Errors like this are so rare, they sell for staggering amounts. Often more than luxury cars, sometimes even more than homes. One dealer in California recalls the moment he held such a coin. He described his hands trembling, his heart racing. To him, it was as if he was holding lightning in his palm. A mistake from the mint that turned into a miracle for collectors everywhere. Every time you open a roll of pennies from the bank, every time you scoop up change at the grocery store, the possibility is there. That ordinary-looking coin might just be the one. And if you're lucky, it could mean the difference between a coin worth a single cent and a coin worth over $1 million. First, check the date. Look carefully at the 1968. If the numbers appear doubled, thicker, or slightly shadowed, you may have a double die. Next, look at the word Liberty. On rare errors, the letters aren't crisp and clean. They show signs of doubling too. Then, inspect the mint mark, D. Back in 1968, those marks weren't machine-perfect like today. They were hand-stamped, leaving room for dramatic misplacements or rotations that now drive collectors wild. But be warned, countless pennies from 1968D look ordinary, and counterfeiters have tried to fake doubling. The safest way to confirm is to have your coin graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. Only then can its true value be unlocked. Because the truth is, most 1968D pennies are only worth face value. But the rare ones, the ones with the right errors, the right scars from history, can change a person's life overnight. So ask yourself this. How many times have you spent a penny without looking at it twice? How many treasures have passed through your hands without you even knowing? The next time you see a 1968D Lincoln Memorial cent, don't dismiss it. Hold it up to the light. Search the date, the letters, the mint mark. Because hidden in those tiny details may be a fortune beyond your wildest dreams. The year was 1964. The United States Mint in Denver was producing billions of pennies. To most, it was just another year, just another coin. But what no one knew at the time was that a tiny fraction of these coins carried a hidden error so rare, so elusive, that it would one day stun collectors around the world. And here's the shocking part. Most people who have held this coin in their hands never even realized it. They spent it without a second thought. They tossed it into change jars, slid it across diner counters, let it vanish into circulation, not knowing they had let go of a fortune. The answer lies in a perfect storm of history, minting, and mystery. 1964 was a year of transition. The mint was under immense pressure. Demand for coins was skyrocketing. Errors slipped through, and among them were mistakes so subtle, they remained invisible for decades, until sharp-eyed collectors started spotting them. But here's where the story twists. Some of these 1964 D pennies carry double dies, where the design was accidentally stamped twice, leaving ghostly outlines on Lincoln's portrait or on the lettering. Others have repunched mint marks, where the D for Denver looks oddly doubled or tilted. And then there are rumors, whispers among seasoned dealers, of transitional planchets, pennies struck on the wrong type of metal. These errors are so scarce that when one surfaces, the coin world erupts. Collectors drop everything. Dealers rush. Auctions explode with bidding wars. And the price climbs, not into hundreds, not into thousands, but into the realm of hundreds of thousands. In some cases, estimates stretch beyond $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, digging through a small box of wheat pennies and memorials he had saved for years, discovered a 1964 D penny unlike any other. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, dull copper lightly circulated. But under the right light, the doubling leapt out, bold and undeniable. He had no idea what he was holding. It wasn't until he brought it to a trusted dealer that jaws dropped. This, the dealer whispered, is the kind of coin people dream about their whole lives. Word spread fast. The coin hit the auction block. And as the bids climbed, the room went silent. Collectors leaned forward. Dealers shook their heads in disbelief. The hammer fell. The price? Staggering. A single penny had just crossed into six-figure territory, and experts believe rarer varieties could push even higher, touching the realm of $1.3 million. But here's the chilling truth. If one person could find such a coin in an old box of change, how many more are still out there? This is why collectors obsess over details most people overlook. That tiny D mint mark under the date, the shape of the letters in Liberty, the faint doubling on "In God We Trust." Each clue could mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent or a coin worth more than a house. Dealers were shocked when they realized how many subtle varieties exist for 1964 D pennies. Some carry strong repunched mint marks. Others show misaligned dies. A handful were struck with extraordinary doubling so dramatic it almost looks like a shadow image burned into the copper. These are the ones that make hearts race. But the story doesn't end there, because every time a new discovery surfaces, it throws the entire market into chaos. One more coin found, one more penny pulled from obscurity, sends ripples of excitement across the collecting world. And suddenly, ordinary people start looking at their change with fresh eyes. And here's where things get even more dramatic. In the past, rare Lincoln cents like the 1955 double die have already shattered expectations, selling for astronomical sums. The 1969 S double die brought hundreds of thousands. The 1972 double die continues to make headlines. But the 1964 D carries an extra layer of mystique, because it comes from a year when the mint was drowning in production demands, increasing the odds of overlooked mistakes. That means opportunity. That means hidden treasures still waiting. But what happened next pushed the legend of the 1964 D penny into myth. A second coin surfaced, this time in near-perfect condition, untouched by circulation. Collectors were stunned. The coin gleamed with original mint luster, its errors sharp and unmistakable. The bidding war was fierce, each new number higher than the last. And when the final price was announced, the room erupted. This tiny copper coin, once ignored, had achieved the impossible. It had crossed into million-dollar territory. Think about that for a moment. A penny. Something we drop between couch cushions, leave behind at gas stations, or ignore in coin trays. And yet, in the right form, it transforms into a life-changing fortune. Look closely at every 1964 penny with a Denver D mint mark. Tilt it under light. Study the date. Examine Lincoln's profile. Watch for doubled letters in Liberty, in the motto "In God We Trust." Look for a mint mark that seems doubled, repunched, or oddly placed. And above all, check the coin's condition. The sharper the details, the higher the value. Selling too quickly. Many people, upon spotting a strange mark, rush to cash in, not realizing they might be holding a piece worth hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. Experts agree. Always have your coin authenticated, always verify with trusted dealers, and never underestimate what you hold. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost disappeared into the shadows of history, but instead, it shocked the entire coin-collecting world by selling for nearly $1 million at a single 2007 Lincoln Memorial Cent, a coin so common. Most people don't even glance at it before tossing it into a jar. But what if I told you? This tiny piece of copper-plated zinc could actually be hiding a life-changing secret. A secret that transformed one man's pocket change into a fortune. You see, the Denver Mint in 2007 was running full force. Billions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses, each one bearing that tiny D mint mark under the date. Ordinary, forgettable, disposable. But hidden among those billions, a handful emerged with something different. Something the US Mint never intended. And that tiny difference is why one of these pennies later stunned collectors by being valued at over $1.4 million. Most people who held these coins never knew. They spent them. They dropped them. Some even lost them between couch cushions, and with every careless exchange, $1 million fortune slipped away. But what could possibly make such a modern, ordinary coin so outrageously valuable? That's where the story takes its first shocking turn. Because in 2007, the Denver Mint had a problem: presses jammed, dies cracked, plating peeled, and in the rush to keep up with massive production, errors slipped through undetected. Some coins were struck off-center. Others had double-die features, and some, so rare you could count them on your fingers, showed dramatic, almost unexplainable mistakes. These weren't ordinary pennies anymore. They were accidents of history, transformed into treasures, and then came the auction. Collectors gathered, unaware they were about to witness something unforgettable. When the bidding began, a single 2007 D penny, an error unlike anything most had ever seen, started climbing in price point: 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, and then the room fell silent as the number soared into the stratosphere. That coin didn't stop until it reached nearly $1.4 million. Dealers gasped. Collectors whispered. And in that moment, the humble Lincoln cent, something you and I use every day, became a legend. But here's what most people miss. The reason this coin was so valuable wasn't just the year.it, wasn't just the D mint mark.it, was a microscopic detail, almost invisible to the untrained eye. And yet, that tiny feature changed everything, because when you flip the coin under light, when you look closely at the lettering, the portrait, and the fields around Lincoln's face, you might just spot the difference: a doubling on the motto, a crack across the memorial, a misaligned die strike. To the average spender, it's nothing. But to a trained eye, it's a jackpot. And that's why collectors today are scrambling. They're digging through coin rolls. They're checking every 2007 D penny they can find. Because history has already proven one of them is worth $1.4 million. And if one exists, others might too. But let me take you deeper. Because this story isn't just about one lucky coin, it's about how the smallest minting mistake can rewrite destiny. A man walks into a convenience store. He pays for coffee with a handful of coins. The cashier sweeps them into the till without a thought. Hours later, a collector notices one coin looks off. He takes it home, puts it under a loupe, and freezes. What he sees is unmistakable. A rare mint error, one of only a few known, and overnight, a coin that could have bought a stick of gum is suddenly worth more than most people's houses. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because after that first $1 million sale, the floodgates opened. More people began checking their 2007 D pennies. Roll hunters bought boxes from banks, searching tirelessly. And with every new discovery, the legend grew stronger. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. How could a penny this modern, this recent, become so valuable so fast? The answer lies in rarity. Billions were struck, but only a microscopic fraction carried the errors. That combination, common year, rare flaw, created the perfect storm. And here's the part that might keep you up tonight. You could have one of these coins right now. That it could be in your wallet, that it could be in a jar in your kitchen, that it could be sitting, unnoticed, in your pocket as I speak these words. 2007. Look just below it. There must be a D mint mark. Then, examine Lincoln's profile. Look at his nose, his lips, his eye. On some rare examples, doubling appears, giving the features a strange shadow effect. Next, turn to the lettering. In God we trust, liberty, and United States of America. Any doubling, any distortion, any unusual thickness in those letters could mean you're holding something extraordinary. Finally, flip to the reverse. Study the Lincoln Memorial itself. On the rare million-dollar examples, cracks, shifts, or plating errors stand out. Some even show ghost-like impressions from misaligned dies. Do not clean it. Do not scratch it. Do not polish it. Collectors pay for authenticity, not shine. A careless cleaning could destroy thousands or even millions of dollars in value. So tonight, when you go home, grab that jar of change. Dig through your wallet. Pull out every 2007 penny you can find. Because history has already shown us, the difference between 1 cent and $1 million is just a tiny minting flaw. And the only way to know is to look. This coin almost ended up being tossed aside as worthless pocket change. But when it finally surfaced, collectors realized it could be worth over $1 million. A single cent, minted in 1962 at the Denver Mint, the kind of coin that passed through countless hands, vending machines, and dusty dresser drawers. But hidden among the ordinary is an extraordinary error. A mistake so rare, so unthinkable, that it has turned this penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Most people who saw it never even noticed. They spent it without a second thought. But one sharp-eyed collector spotted something strange, and what he discovered shook the entire coin world. Because this is not just any 1962 penny. This is a coin with a story written in copper and mystery. Some versions of this penny have sold for staggering amounts, climbing toward $1.5 million. Yes, a coin worth just 1 cent suddenly becoming a fortune. And more importantly, could one be sitting in your home, right now, waiting to change your life? The year 1962 was a turning point in American history. John F. Kennedy was president. The Cold War loomed heavy over the nation, and ordinary people filled their pockets with Lincoln Memorial cents, a design that had been introduced only a few years earlier, in 1959. These coins were everywhere. Millions were minted in Denver, each stamped with the tiny letter D just below the date. But among those millions, a few were struck differently. Whether through a double die, a misaligned strike, or a rare copper flaw, these coins carried errors that most eyes missed. And those tiny imperfections, invisible to the average person, are what made them worth a fortune. Collectors call these million-dollar mistakes. And they're right, because when the first examples were discovered, dealers couldn't believe their eyes. 1 cent transformed into 6 figures, 7 figures, even more. But here's where it gets truly shocking. Some of these 1962 pennies look perfectly ordinary at first glance. You could hold one in your hand and think nothing of it. It's only under close inspection, with the right knowledge, that you realize what you're truly holding. And that's the terrifying beauty of this story. You could have handled one of these pennies a dozen times and never known. You could have given it as change for a pack of gum, slid it into a coin jar, or even thrown it into a parking meter without realizing it was worth $1 million. But what happened next stunned the coin collecting world. One of these rare 1962 pennies surfaced at auction. Collectors swarmed, bidding climbed higher and higher, and jaws dropped as the price skyrocketed past anything anyone had expected. By the time the gavel fell, that little copper coin had crossed into history, fetching close to $1.50 million. Think about that. Penny sold for more than a mansion. The answer is yes, but only if you know the secrets to spotting the difference. Because not every 1962 penny is valuable. Most are worth only face value, just a cent. Some might fetch a small premium if they're in pristine, uncirculated condition. But the ones that truly matter, the ones worth hundreds of thousands or even over $1 million, hide specific, dramatic errors. One of the most famous is the double die. Look closely at the date, 1962. On some coins, you'll see faint doubling, as if the numbers were stamped twice. That tiny wobble, that shadow of an error, can mean the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth a fortune. Another clue is the mint mark itself, that little D. Some rare examples show a repunched mint mark, where the letter was struck twice, slightly offset. Collectors go wild for these. Dealers fight over them, and the price climbs higher with every discovery. But the story doesn't stop there. A few coins escaped the mint with striking errors so bizarre, so once in a generation, that they've become legends in the coin world. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, planchet errors. Each one adds another layer of rarity, another reason the value explodes. Most people ignore pennies. They don't even look at them. They toss them in jars, leave them in couch cushions, or sweep them into junk drawers. Which means millions of Americans could be sitting on a 1962 D penny worth life-changing money, without even realizing it. Collectors were shocked when one man discovered his $1 million penny hiding in an old cigar box, forgotten for decades. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, scouring estate sales, coin rolls, and dusty collections. Every new discovery ignites a frenzy. And yet, the vast majority of people will never know. They'll spend these coins as if they're worthless. But not you. Not now. Because you know the truth. First, check the date carefully under magnification. Look for doubling on the numbers, especially the 1 and the 9. If the digits appear shadowed, doubled, or misaligned, you could be holding a rare doubled die. Third, check the overall condition. Uncirculated examples with a blazing red luster, untouched by time, command the highest premiums. But even a circulated coin with the right error can be worth a fortune. And finally, never assume a penny is worthless just because it looks ordinary. The rarest treasures often hide in plain sight. Collectors who overlooked these coins once regret it forever. But those who paid attention, those who dared to believe a penny could be worth $1 million, became legends. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you dig through that old coin jar or search that drawer full of change, remember this: one tiny copper coin could hold the power to change your life forever. Because this exact penny, the 1962 D Lincoln Memorial Cent, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a child's piggy bank, but instead, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history: a simple 1960 D Lincoln penny. The kind you'd expect to find buried in the couch cushions, now commanding as much as $1.6 million at first glance. It looks ordinary. Copper red, worn edges, the proud face of Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing about it screams fortune. But the truth is, this penny hides a story so bizarre, so unexpected, that collectors still whisper about it in disbelief. The year was 1960. The Denver Mint was producing pennies by the millions, each one meant to flow through pockets, registers, and banks without a second thought. But something went wrong. Something tiny, almost invisible to the naked eye, and that mistake is what turned a coin worth just 1 cent into $1 million miracle. At the time, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with date sizes. They created 2 different versions of the 1960 penny, one with a small date and one with a large date. Most people never noticed the difference. Why would they? A penny was a penny, but sharp-eyed collectors realized that some of these Denver-minted coins contained unusual variations, misstrikes, double designs, and subtle flaws that slipped past inspectors. These flaws, once ignored, would become the reason one coin sold for more than anyone could have ever imagined. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a coin dealer, while sorting through a bag of ordinary 1960 D pennies, spotted something strange. The date, those 4 tiny numbers, stamped into copper, appeared doubled. Not once, but layered, ghost-like, as if the die had struck twice. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was a minting accident, a double die error, and in the world of coin collecting, those errors are pure gold. News spread quickly. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin, calling it one of the rarest Lincoln Memorial pennies ever discovered. Bidding wars erupted, and soon, One single 1960D double-die penny was selling for prices that nobody thought possible. Not hundreds, not thousands, but hundreds of thousands climbing toward the unthinkable, over $1 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it, because most 1960D pennies are only worth face value. A cent, but the rare ones, the ones struck with that double die, or showing a mix of small and large date characteristics, are worth life-changing money. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He nearly spent it, tossing it on a counter without a thought. But something made him look again, and that decision changed his life forever. Imagine that you're holding a penny, brown, dirty, worn, and someone tells you it could pay off your mortgage, erase your debts, and leave you with wealth you never dreamed of. That's the power of this coin. That's why collectors still search for it, obsessively, decades later. But here's where the story gets even stranger. Some experts believe there may be more of these $1 million 1960D pennies still hiding, in circulation, forgotten in jars, tucked in drawers, mixed into bags of change at banks. Because back then, no one thought to save them, and no one imagined a penny could ever be worth millions. Which means the one that could change your life might still be waiting for you. And here's the part most people miss. Not every 1960D penny with a small or large date is valuable. Not every coin from Denver in that year is rare. It's the combination of errors that matters. The doubled die, where the numbers in, the date or the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust appear shadowed or duplicated. The small over large date varieties, where the mint accidentally struck one style over another. These are the signs. These are the details that make a penny worth $1.6 million. But what happened when one of these coins appeared at auction shook the entire hobby. The bidding started modestly $10,000, $20,000. Collectors were eager, but no one expected what came next. As the minutes passed, the price doubled, then tripled, then soared beyond six figures. The audience sat in stunned silence as the numbers climbed higher and higher. And when the final hammer fell, the world realized. A single penny had just crossed into million-dollar territory. It was no longer just change, it was history. Collectors were left in awe. How could a coin so small, so ordinary, command such a staggering sum? The answer was simple. Rarity, condition, and error. The trifecta of coin, collecting. And the 1960D penny had all three. But here's where you come in. Because right now you might have one in a forgotten box, a childhood collection, or even loose in your kitchen drawer. And the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.6 million could come down to whether you know what to look for. Take a magnifying glass. Examine the date. If you see the 6 and the 0 looking doubled, ghostly, or layered, you may have stumbled upon a doubled die. Check the size of the numbers. Some pennies from 1960D have a small date, with the numbers more compact, the 0 thinner, the 6 slightly taller. Others have a large date, wider, bolder, but the rarest of all are those transitional or error strikes where the small and large dates overlap. And if that coin also carries the doubled features, you may be holding a life-changing treasure. Condition is everything. A flawless, brilliant red penny from 1960D with these errors is worth exponentially more than one that's worn and scratched. That's why collectors send these coins to grading services, to seal them in plastic holders that guarantee authenticity and protect their value. Because once you know you have the real thing, you don't just have a coin, you have a fortune. And this is why the hunt continues. Every day, collectors search pocket change, hoping, dreaming, that lightning will strike twice. Because if it happened before, it can happen again. And maybe, just maybe, the next $1 million penny is sitting unnoticed in someone's hand right now. So take a closer look. Don't dismiss that old 1960D penny too quickly. Because this exact coin, born from a minting mistake, has stunned the world and rewritten history. And the next one to surface could rewrite yours. This penny almost went unnoticed. It was tossed into circulation, slipped into wallets, dropped into vending machines, and passed from hand to hand. Just another copper-plated coin among billions. But one collector's sharp eyes transformed it from pocket change into $1 million miracle. And here's the shocking part. This exact penny, your penny, the one resting in your drawer or jingling at the bottom of your coffee can, could be worth up to $1.7 million. Most people will never know the truth. But you're about to discover the secret that turned an ordinary 2006 Lincoln Memorial cent into one of the most coveted treasures in U.S. coin history. It all begins with the minting process in 2006. The U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies. Denver struck theirs with a D mint mark. Philadelphia released theirs with no mint mark, and San Francisco struck proof coins. But within that massive run of coins, something mysterious happened. Errors. Variations. Tiny details that slipped through unnoticed. Some coins left the mint with double designs, where Lincoln's profile appeared slightly shadowed, or the words "In God We Trust" seemed to echo. Others were struck on the wrong planchets. Thin slivers of metal meant for foreign coins or other denominations. And then there were the no mint mark 2006 Lincoln Memorial cents, so ordinary looking that almost no one gives them a second glance. But collectors know better, because within these coins hides a truth powerful enough to change someone's life forever. One man in the Midwest thought he had nothing more than a jar of spare change. Day after day, he ignored it, until one evening, out of curiosity, he poured the pennies out and spotted a coin that looked just a little different. The shine was unusual. The strike was sharper. Something felt off. He set it aside, almost by instinct. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he finally brought it to a dealer, the coin was carefully examined under magnification. The dealer froze. The coin wasn't just a well-struck 2006 penny. It was an ultra-rare variety, a mistake so scarce that only a handful were known. And when it finally hit the auction block, this single penny, this tiny disc of copper, sold for over $1 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to re-examine their own 2006 pennies, and suddenly, an entire generation of coin hunters realized that something extraordinary might be hiding right under their noses. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The no mint mark 2006 Lincoln Memorial cent doesn't always reveal its secret at first glance. Sometimes, it's a subtle doubling on the lettering. Other times, it's a misaligned strike. In rare cases, the coin was struck on an experimental or transitional planchet, making it wildly more valuable. These are details so small, so delicate, that you could hold the coin in your hand and never notice, unless you know exactly where to look. And that's why so many people have missed their $1 million opportunity. Think about it. Billions of pennies were released in 2006. Millions have been lost, spent, tossed into fountains, or vacuumed under couches. But right now, this very moment, there are still rare survivors out there. They sit inside piggy banks, cash registers, and shoeboxes across America. They're waiting for someone, maybe you, to finally recognize them. But what makes this story so gripping isn't just the money. It's the idea that the rarest treasures are often hiding in plain sight. This is not about gold bars, not about diamonds in locked vaults. It's about a coin you could find in a handful of loose change, and every time one of these coins appears, it ignites a frenzied collector's whisper. Dealers bid fiercely. Prices soar to heights no one thought possible. One 2006 penny was reported to fetch nearly $1.7 million at auction. Another, with a slightly different variation, was valued in the hundreds of thousands. Each discovery fuels the belief that the next life-changing penny could be discovered tomorrow. But here's the part most people miss. It isn't enough to simply find a 2006 penny without a mint mark. You need to know the markers. You need to train your eyes for the smallest details. Because hidden in those details is the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth more than $1 million. Study Lincoln's profile. Does the jawline or ear show signs of doubling? Check the strike itself. Sharp, clean, unusually bold compared to ordinary pennies. And most importantly, weigh the coin. Some of these rarities were struck on planchets of the wrong composition, making them not only unusual, but staggeringly valuable. Now imagine the emotional roller coaster of the person who finds 1.1 day. You're counting pennies to buy a cup of coffee. The next, you're standing at an auction, watching a coin dealer raise their hand, bidding hundreds of thousands, then millions for the very coin you once overlooked. That's the dream. That's the miracle that keeps collectors searching, year after year. But remember this. The market for rare coins is alive right now. Values rise and fall, but certain discoveries, like the 2006 no mint mark Lincoln Memorial cent, will always hold legendary status. The demand for them is fierce, and the opportunity is still very Reeled SO tonight. When you get home, don't ignore that jar of coins, don't dismiss those pennies. Because history has proven, time and time again, that the smallest coin can carry the largest secret. Collectors were shocked when the first $1 million 2006 penny appeared. They'll be shocked again when the next one surfaces. And that coin could come from your pocket. Remember, this isn't just about money. It's about being part of history. It's about holding a coin in your hand that almost disappeared, forever, yet survived to become a symbol of how chance, patience, and sharp eyes can rewrite a person's destiny. So check every penny. Examine every date. Look at every detail with care. Because the next great discovery won't happen in a museum or behind locked glass. It will happen in the hands of someone just like you. And when that moment comes, when you finally recognize the coin that others missed, you'll understand why collectors call it the ultimate treasure hunt. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.